Social Justice Goblin! Welcome to the Breakfast Nook. Spending money that I don't need to spend because I need to save every penny I've got right now because I don't know. My situation right now is what it is. So anyways, I was feeling a little under the weather, so I decided to treat myself to some comic books. So I decided to check out a new comic book shop in town called Bat City Comics that I have never been to, and I was highly interested in seeing it. And also I needed to get some comic books slabbed. So I bought this comic book, which brings up the interesting question. They had this labeled as Golden Age. And given it's from the 50s, 1955 to be exact, as listed in the Comic Book Buyer's Guide, the Bible of all comic books, it's listed which is listed as still golden because silver in DC didn't start till 1964. So they're correct in saying it's golden age, I guess. But this begs the question, does this determine if it's golden age or not? Because there was a direct contrast in comics from when the code started to when the code started before the code. Golden Age comics were a lot different, and there's different levels. You have the early years, and then you have the war years. And then you have the 40s, and then you have the early 50s, where the stuff really got avant-garde. 50s Golden Age is probably some of the best horror that you could ever read, and some of the best true crime you'll ever read. It's just amazing. But this is code approved. And I would argue code approved means it's silver. Because of the change in comics from content. It became more wholesome. And this was during the experimental phase where superhero comics were kind of slowly dying and they were trying new things out. So that really brings the interesting question. Is this golden or is this silver? I would argue it's silver because it's post-code. However, I have found true crime comics that have the comic code on them. The last 2 or 3 issues of all the true crimes had comic code on them. Of all those true crime comics, the crime comics had codes on them, and they all violated the rule. This does not violate any of the comic code rules. It's wholesome. Just an interesting thought. Oh, on one note, they did have one mislabeled. You can definitely tell the difference between the age of Disney comics based upon how they look. Dell Comics. This is one era of Dell Comics, and then there's a different era of Dell Comics that's even earlier. And there's multiple eras. There's a gold and silver and a bronze and pretty much modern. I would actually, that would be an interesting question. What are the ages of Disney comics? And of all the Dell comics, because they went through cover changes and stuff and became reprints and things like that in their time. So what went from being original to not being original, it's just interesting questions asking. I mean, everything current that's printed current is reprints from stuff from Europe. Italian, exactly. So I don't know.